Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay, so I've been sitting here thinking about villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Like what comes after Thanos, right? Like people kind of talk about that. Like there was a really cool video released by Everything Always where it was like how Avengers Endgame sets up Galactus and things like that. Because I watch a lot of comic book and geek-centric YouTubers. A lot of you guys don't really seem to believe that, but there's a lot of comic book YouTubers that I watch. Like I'm probably like, if you're a comic book YouTuber out there, I'm probably like, you know, sneaking around and watching your channel very sneakily. but nonetheless, you know, I was sitting here thinking about that, and I was like, you know, I want to start a series of videos where we talk about like villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Like why I think they would be a good fit. Not even anything like too powerful for the Marvel movies, right? I mean, which we gotta, that's coming back. You know what? That's coming back on Saturday. We'll probably do one about a version of Spider-Man. I know exactly what version of Spider-Man I'm gonna do, but Saturday we'll bring that back. Cause we kind of took a break from it because like Avengers Endgame, can you really blame me? But anyway, I was like, you know, it's not even really gonna be exactly like that, right? Like here's how this villain would overpower the MCU. I was thinking about it from the perspective of like why they would be an awesome character, like why they would be an awesome villain. Because Feige and them had come out previously before Avengers Endgame and said, okay, we kind of realized the error of killing off our villains, right? Because like, how, you know, because we're running out of them. You know, we killed off Red Skull, quote unquote. I mean, of course, Red Skull still exists, just not in the same form. It's just kind of a spirit that hangs out around that planet. What is it? The planet Faramir or Formir, whatever it is, where the Soul Stone was. But like, you know, the Red Skull's there, you know, just kind of in a spiritual form. But they could bring him back, and that was something I was kind of hesitant about, right? Like, you know, people were like Red Skull's in Infinity War, and I'm just like, what? You know, like what's the Red Skull doing in Infinity War? And when I saw him, like when I thought that, I was like, okay, how do you do it without the Matrix guy? I can't remember what his name is, the guy that played Agent Smith. How do you do it without him? And then like I saw that version of Red Skull, and I was like, Hugo Weaving, that's what it is. And I saw that version of Red Skull, and I was like, okay, that works. And so I mean, some of the villains could kind of make a return, but like Obadiah Stane, you know, Ironmonger, he's dead, he's gone, he's out of the picture. You know, a lot of villains like that are no longer, you know, never to be seen. And so with Feige and them saying, hey, like we don't really want to keep killing off our villains, or at least, you know, me kind of paraphrasing, putting words in their mouth, you know, we don't really want to keep killing villains. We want to kind of bring them in and then I guess keep them around, you know, so that we can do something with them later on down the line. It presents the opportunity to bring in a lot of awesome villains. Because the thing about Thanos is that as interesting as he is, and as upset as I was about the fact that they killed him off, there are villains out there who are actually a lot more intriguing. And in this video, I want to talk about Doctor Doom. We did a video previously where it was like, you know, like too powerful for Marvel movies, God King Doom. I want to kind of leave out the Secret Wars version of Doctor Doom, right? I mean, we'll mention him here, but I want to talk about why Doctor Doom would be an amazing villain. The reason for this is when I look at villains and I determine the difference between an amazing villain and a great villain, an amazing villain is one that's like, that's almost relatable. That you look at that and the way they're written, the way they're done, either in one story arc or multiple story arcs, is done in such a way to where it's like either I can identify with that character or I think their character progression is kind of cool. Because for years and years and years, Doctor Doom was a bad guy. And then Secret Wars 2015 happened, and when Bendis was writing him, he basically had this attitude of like, Doctor Doom has a new lease on life. And so when Iron Man died after Civil War II, Doctor Doom became the new Iron Man, right? Like he took up the mantle and became the new Iron Man for a while. And it was awesome. Like it was, I mean, some people kind of complained about it, but I think like 99% of people who saw the story of Doctor Doom being Iron Man thought it was awesome, or at the very least was an awesome concept. And I loved it. Oh, I loved the costume. I loved his whole motivation. He went through and just like was like eradicating villains and things like that. Not really Punisher-like, but you know, like dealing with villains that had long since been like a menace to the superhero community, things like that. And so I look at that and I say, okay, like Doctor Doom would be awesome in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the reason for this is because people look at Doom and they say, okay, he's a villain of the Fantastic Four. So you could put him in the MCU, but he would be restricted to the Fantastic Four. And that's true, but not true at the same time. And the reason why a lot of non-comic book readers say that is because in movie form, he's only ever been a villain of the Fantastic Four. And even when they know about him, they know him as a Fantastic Four foe. But that's because by and large, they're probably not aware of stories like Secret Wars 1984. They're probably not aware of stories like Doom War, like Secret Wars 2015. 15, different things like that. Dr. Doom, when it comes to being a villain, and I can't really blame him, I mean, they never really read comics, but like Dr. Doom as a villain is pretty much a villain of everyone, because Dr. Doom has fought everyone, right? Like Dr. Doom has fought the X-Men. There was one point where Dr. Doom fought the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and the Avengers all at the same time, and actually won for a little while. And that was actually the story Doom War. I'll talk about that here in a second. But Dr. Doom he's a complicated character, right? Like you look at him and it's very easy to chalk him up to being like your stereotypical villain, right? Like, I'm a bad guy and I do bad things because that's what bad guys do. Not at all. Dr. Doom, for example, like there's this one moment in, what is it, in Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, when Namor the Submariner forms a cabal with like Thanos and basically the Black Order, the same Black Order that you saw from Infinity War. And the idea is they want to stop the incursions. If you don't know what that means, it doesn't really matter for the sake of this part of the discussion. But there's one point where the cabal basically gets out of control and Namor doesn't really know how to reel them back in, right? Like, their job was to go through and just destroy worlds. But Thanos and the Black Order actually relish in like torturing people. Right? Like, there's one point where like they kill all the X-Men in one universe, and then they like force Charles Xavier to like beg them to kill him, right? I mean, it's crazy and it's twisted. But Namor goes to Dr. Doom and he's just like, I don't know how to corral this in anymore. And Dr. Doom's response is like, you know, I understand your dalliances with, you know, your goings on with like Reed Richards and like Tony Stark and those guys in the Illuminati because you thought you were doing the right thing. But then, like, instead of coming to me after you left, you threw your lot in with Thanos and the Black Order, and then here you come dragging the stinking carcass of your failure to my front door. No, that's not gonna happen. You know, and it's one of the crazy things because like he's just like, no, I'm not gonna help you. Like, I'm not going to help you out. And I guess maybe you kind of require context to really understand the significance of that situation, but it's a great moment because when it comes to Dr. Doom as a character, he's very, very prideful, right? Like, Dr. Doom is exceedingly arrogant and full of hubris, but rightfully so. But at the same time, he's also caring, right? Like, during that same exchange with Namor the Submariner, like Namor, he calls into question Dr. Doom's role as like the leader of Latveria, right? Like the king or the emperor of Latveria, the country that Dr. Doom reigns over. And Dr. Doom kind of responds and he says, do you really believe that if the people in this country wanted to kill me, that they couldn't rise up and destroy me? Like, do you really believe that couldn't happen? If you do, you're a fool. He's like, but I keep them protected. I make sure they're safe. I make sure that when they go to sleep at night, they don't have anything to worry about. I get them food. You know, so he's like, when they go to bed, before they pray to whatever God they pray to, they give thanks to me. And it's just like, damn. It's like one of the most arrogant things ever, but it's true. Dr. Doom is fiercely protective of his people. If somebody were like if for whatever reason Wolverine, for example, lost his mind and like decided he was gonna go attack Latveria and just started indiscriminately killing Latverian citizens, oh, Dr. Doom would tear him limb from limb. He would rip them apart. Dr. Doom does not abide those who try to do wrong by his people. He protects them. He keeps them safe. He's the guy that rules that place, and he does it not really with a harsh hand, but actually with a very caring and with a kind hand, you know, with a benign hand. You actually see that in Ed Brubaker's Books of Doom, right? The origin of Dr. Doom, when he takes over Latveria. Because before Dr. Doom, there was this emperor who was just a dick and he treated everybody terribly. And so Doom's like, if I'm going to be a ruler and a king, I'm not going to be like that guy. But then you look at Dr. Doom on the other side, where he's like coveting absolute power, right? Because in Jonathan Hickman's run of the Fantastic Four, there was this really, really good story where Dr. Doom, where Reed Richards, not a really good story, but there's a really good point where Reed Richards, of course, encounters the Council of Reeds, basically like all this huge gathering of these alternate reality versions of himself. And they take him through and they show him different worlds where they're doing different things and fixing various problems and so on and so forth. And then suddenly they get this great big huge alert. And it's like Dr. Doom in some universe somewhere is doing something to try to gain absolute power or whatever. And when the Council of Reeds brings Reed Richards from the main Marvel universe with them to fight that version of Dr. Doom, once they defeat him, they lobotomize him and they stick him below the Citadel, like the base of operations for the Council of Reeds. And when Reed asks why you do that, you know, he's like, why do you guys do this? And why are there so many other versions of Dr. Doom who have been lobotomized and are sitting under here? The Council says, because Doom's quest for power is absolute. Doom will never give up on trying to acquire absolute power. He'll never stop. His lust for power is unquenchable. It can never be satisfied. He will always try to gain absolute power. If there's more power to be coveted, he will try to attain it. And it was a really cool moment, because that's true about Dr. Doom. He's kind of selfish, and he's very prideful, and he's very caring towards his people. For everybody else, he's very cold. And if there's a way for him to expand his power, he always will. And we've seen that in a multitude of different ways, right? Like he threw in with a group called the Intelligentsia. And the Intelligentsia was an organization, and actually, I think he was a part of it for a while, and so they took him and then like screwed with his brain. But the Intelligentsia was an organization of various supervillains who were largely exceedingly smart. And they were kind of plotting and planning their own ends in order to try to conquer the world or something like that. But Doom threw in with them for a little while. In the story, what is it, Secret Wars in 1984, the original Secret Wars book, Dr. Doom steals the power of Galactus, and then he steals the power of the Beyonder, who was more powerful than anybody who existed in, throughout the entirety of Marvel Comics, with the exception of the One Above All, I think. And like Dr. Doom stole his power because he's like, I'm trying to attain absolute power. In the story Doom War, Dr. Doom actually goes into Latveria and then basically like gathers with a whole bunch of radical fundamentalist nationals. These guys who basically look at T'Challa and Shuri, his sister, who I think, she wasn't the new Black Panther at the time. I'll actually explain that here in a second. And then Storm, who of course at the time was the wife of Black Panther. And those guys basically trying to move Wakanda into becoming more in tune with like the rest of the world, right? Like opening their doors and basically saying we want to be a part of the rest of the world instead of being isolationist. Like what you saw at the end of, was it Captain? I don't think it was Captain America: Civil War. I'm sorry, the end of Black Panther, where he said like we don't really want to like invite everybody into Wakanda, but we certainly want to play more of a role in the world instead of being so closed off. Though these radical fundamentalists didn't like that. And so Dr. Doom went in there and was like, hey, I will help you guys oust T'Challa and his sister Shuri and Storm. I will help you guys do that. He funded a coup d'etat in Wakanda, and it was successful. It worked. Like literally those guys went in, guns and everything, and they overthrew the reign of Black Panther. And in fact, during that whole skirmish, and maybe it was right before that happened, but during that skirmish, Black Panther, I guess T'Challa is injured, and he has to like cede the throne to his sister Shuri. And so Shuri becomes the new Black Panther. And that's why it is, following that and really going into like Secret Wars 2015, and then after Secret Wars 2015, Black Panther is not in charge of Wakanda anymore. It's his sister. She's the one that runs it because it all came out of Doom War. But like they're basically ousted, right? Like Storm she's imprisoned, and like T'Challa and Shuri are on the run. They run to like the X-Men, and they're like, hey, like you guys are friends with Storm. We've had a lot of dealings over the years. We've teamed up. We've done a lot of things together. Like I need you guys to help me defeat Dr. Doom in Wakanda. And so like they end up recruiting the Avengers, who in turn recruit the Fantastic Four. And so like you have this huge gathering of forces to face off against Dr. Doom. And the reason why is because Dr. Doom's whole motivation for doing this was taking all the vibranium in Wakanda. And the reason why was because vibranium amplifies magical energy. And so Dr. Doom is like, if I have all that vibranium, I can amp up my powers and then become godlike. And he did. Like he was godly in terms of his power. Like it was almost completely, he was like in that form that he was in with that kind of power, he was unstoppable. Nobody could defeat him. The only way they were able to beat him is Black Panther had to render all vibranium across the world inert. It was just a useless chunk of rock. The principles and the aspects of vibranium that made it so valuable were gone, right? Like it was believed he destroyed his country's economy at the same time. And while that's not true because they bought up a bunch of national debt, Wakanda was nowhere near as rich as it had been before. But literally like that kind of a story is a kind of story you could see in the MCU. But think about the character of Iron Man, of Tony Stark, right? Like when Iron Man 1 came out, Tony Stark was basically two-dimensional. He was a weapons manufacturer who had a change of heart because he was taken prisoner and realized what his weapons had done to young people, and then he decided to become Iron Man. Like, okay, cool. Like that's superhero storytelling 101. It's the most formulaic story you could possibly tell. It's age old and it's timeless. But then you look at Tony Stark in Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 and like Captain America: Civil War and like Avengers 1, 2, and 3, and I guess 1 and 2, and then Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. You look at like the entire evolution in Spider-Man Homecoming. You look at the evolution of Tony Stark from the first Iron Man movie all the way to the end of Avengers Endgame, and like literally that whole 10 years is the arc of Tony Stark. That's what I would call it. The age of Iron Man is what I would call that phase, because it was all about like the progression of Tony Stark. And as a viewer, you grew with him. Like you looked at that and you became attached to him because you understood the struggle of Tony Stark. You understood his mistakes. You realized he was screwing up, but at the end of the day, he was trying to do the right thing. And so at the end of Avengers Endgame, when Tony Stark sacrifices his life, there's a reason why people were crying in the movie theater, because it was just like, damn, Iron Man's dead. But if he had died in the first movie, it wouldn't have mattered to you as much because you would have hardly understood him at all because he had been around for 2.5 hours as far as you were aware. And so when you look at that, And then you take a character like Doctor Doom, who in the comics is actually a lot more nuanced, a lot more interesting, and a lot more complex than Tony Stark is, and you throw him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then you leave him there for, 15 years or something like that, and you give him 5 movies to expand the character, it becomes awesome because there's so much you can do with him. There's so much you can do with this character, and there's so much growth, because then you see that like he's a tortured character. Like he's a rough character. Like he lost his mom sold her soul to Mephisto, who's basically the devil, and like Doctor Doom has basically been trying to get his mom's soul back ever since. Because if you read the comics, that's why he tries to acquire absolute power. That's the basis behind it. That's the motivation behind it. Doom wants absolute power so he can rescue his mom's soul from the devil. That's basically it. So he can free his mom and let her live a happy afterlife. That's it. But like you look at the comics and all the steps he takes and the terrible things he does, and you realize it's all for what's genuinely a good cause for someone other than himself. And it changes your entire perspective of why Doctor Doom does what he does. So again, like I think he'd make an amazing villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think he'd be fantastic. And I think he would be he'd probably be one of the best villains you've ever seen in film form if he's written right across all the movies he appears in. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like and let me know what you think down in the comments section about this video. And I guess this video type, and I will catch you all later. Peace.